We have some massive leaks that we have to cover in today's news video. These leaks include Season 23, the final shape, and episodes, which is a new model that Bungie is working with, starting with the launch of the final shape. So this is your final spoiler warning right now. If you don't want to see any leaks, you're going to have to click off the video. But keep in mind that we're going to take these with a grain of salt, meaning that a lot of the time when it comes to these leaks, there's not 100% credibility or certainty that things are going to happen exactly the way that they are leaked to us. I would say on average, they're like, I don't know, maybe 80 to 90% accurate. But with that being said, let's jump right into it. The first part we need to mention is that these leaks are being received apparently from a Bungie employee that was affected by the layoffs. Apparently they have chosen to remain anonymous, so that way in the future they at least stand a chance at getting another job within the gaming industry. So that's our alleged source for this first leak that we're going to cover. Season 23, the seasonal activities are going to be 3 battlegrounds. I'm not sure if you're a big fan of the battlegrounds. I haven't personally disliked them that much in terms of them being brought into the Nightfall rotations. I personally like strikes a little bit more, but it looks like Bungie is going the battlegrounds route, at least with next season. Each one of these battlegrounds will apparently begin at the wish wall. Players can shoot it a certain number of times, determined by their seasonal upgrades, to trigger random challenges or buffs. The new dungeon that's coming out in Season 23 is going to be a direct sequel to the Shattered Throne. The objective is to restore it to Mara's control, and apparently Savathun will be helping her, although begrudgingly. That's actually pretty exciting. Would be interesting if true. A dungeon on the Dreaming City is something that we haven't seen in quite some time, obviously since Forsaken. Let me know which planetary destination you think would be the absolute best to have a dungeon on currently. The next part of this leak reads that the season ends the Dreaming City curse, aided by the actions taken in the dungeon. The 3-week cycle remains in the destination, however, which is interesting to see things come back full circle. A big part of the Destiny 2 story has been the Dreaming City curse and it potentially being lifted. I could easily see the narrative actually lifting the curse from the Dreaming City, but the 3-week cycle still remaining due to challenges and triumphs in the game and stuff like that. Kind of like one of those things that doesn't make sense, but you just go along with it anyways. Like Xur simultaneously being in the tower, but then also being in the 30th anniversary Star Horse treasure cave. It doesn't make sense, but it's Bungie trying to resolve some of the issues in the narrative that we've previously had to make it a little bit more fluid. Those are all of the Season 23 leaks. Now it's time to jump into the final shape leaks. The next part reads, very little one-to-one reuse of assets. Old set pieces, Vogg's King's Fall Vow are appropriated, but changed significantly. Very interesting. The next part is that Rolk is used as a campaign boss, not really him, just the same model, and the ghost will comment on it. That would be kind of interesting, I suppose. I mean, Rolk obviously has a unique movement style. He's, teleporting around and kicking things. He has been historically very buggy as a raid boss though, so I wonder what he's going to be like as a campaign boss. The next part reads that the Lucent Hive are in the Traveler the same way that Cade is, not really alive. They're being used as the Traveler's main resistance to the Witness. That's actually a really interesting point and kind of makes a lot of sense. Cade is there, but he's not really alive. He's just there as a guide for us. So I guess that other enemies could also be there as well. And in this case, apparently it's the Lucent Hive being used by the Witness. The next part reads, one mission requires the Guardian to make a tenuous alliance with Ekthar to fight a Shadow of Oryx using Hive magic. Ekthar being a dungeon boss in Ghosts of the Deep, and would also be interesting to see the continuation of Hive magic being used. Next part says that the Pale Heart is genuinely large. Seems a bit vague there, but interesting nonetheless. Tree of Silver Wings in one of these side bubbles has mechanic where you give it collectibles earned through doing challenges in Pale Heart to unlock rewards, unique red borders, and an exotic. The next leak reads, main aim of the Pale Heart is to give players a long-term system to chase. Very interesting note there, because I wonder what they're talking about in terms of long-term. Like how long-term are we talking here? And this next part is about the raid boss, which sounds really exciting. Of course, I always want to know what's going on with the new raid and stuff. The raid boss is a 4-phase fight against the Witness, ends with the Witness's darkness connection severed, and a new type of darkness released into the world. The lore of this raid rivals that of Vow of the Disciple. Very interesting stuff. A 4-phase boss fight versus the Witness. And the bit about the darkness connection being severed sounds really exciting, because that would create a new type of darkness being released into the world. Is that the mysterious red subclass that we've been talking about in the past? The next part reads, no new subclass planned for the final shape. Although it is in development, the red subclass leaks were real. Bungie may end up including the new subclass with the final shape if the delay happens. Wow, now that would be very interesting. So Bungie needs some more time to develop this subclass, and if the delays do happen, they probably would have time to release it, but if they don't, then they're going to have to delay it after the launch of the final shape in February. At the time I'm recording this video, there's no exact confirmation that the final shape will be delayed. so we'll see what happens with that. Now we're moving on to Bungie's new episodic model. The old seasonal model is gone, and now we're working with episodes. The first one is Echoes. Venus returns. Missions on Venus were planned for Lightfall but got cut. So much of the work was already done, which is pretty exciting. I'm happy to see the planetary destination Venus return. One of my personal favorites. Next part reads, Osiris's echoes sent out to explore the infinite forest have been subsumed by the Vex. Okay, so it looks like we're working with the narrative construct of Osiris and his battle with the Vex again. The new Vex enemy Echo, special buffer unit, casts Song of Flame, so allied projectiles scorch on hit. Also applies Withered, which either reduces accuracy, reduces fire rate, or both, with a note saying that it was still in playtest, so it's not final, which sounds absolutely devious. I mean, if you were affected by this, if you get Withered, you're gonna have potentially reduced weapon accuracy or a reduction to the rate of fire. Weapon accuracy reduction would be crazy. Could you imagine trying to damage this enemy type and aiming directly at it but missing? I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I guess maybe it could be fair if all you had to do was not get hit by this blast to not allow that to happen, but we'll see how it plays when it goes live, if this does in fact go live. The next bit reads, there's two Osirises, the regular one and an Echo, who is now a major Vex antagonist in control of the Precursor Vex. Very interesting stuff. Two Osirises. Precursor Vex invasion of Venus. Lots of cool chrome/gold littered around the landscape. And the last bit for the Echoes says, episode story is mostly about finding out what is going on. Eris Morn and Osiris involved. Got it? Let me know your thoughts about the first episode, Echoes, and the leaks that go along with that. Now let's move on to the next one, which is called Beyond. The first leak reads, episodes are being structured as enjoyable experiences to play through in one sitting, which sounds really good. Honestly, I like that a lot. Vaulting will continue, but Bungie plans to let old episode campaigns be replayed on a rotation. People might be upset about that one. We'll see how that ends up playing out. The next bullet point reads, plans to improve the new player experience significantly, move aspect/fragment unlocks away from vendor. That sounds really good and honestly will help streamline the new player experience in the game. Next says, episodes to be Shadowkeep sized, potential plans to continue episodes with greater investment as a replacement to the final shape, Lightfall, Witch Queen size expansions. Whoa, now that would be crazy. And if in fact the episodes are Shadowkeep size, that's just amazing. That means that Bungie is finally delivering big. Over delivery is back on the menu. And the last part actually reads, no 2025 expansion plan, which could be pretty crazy if you think about it. That means that Bungie could potentially just keep doing episodic models in perpetuity, 3 new episodes every year. If they are sizable and interesting enough, this could actually be the saving grace to Destiny 2, and I sure do hope so. The next part is in regards to the subclass. Subclass to be released alongside an episode when it's ready. Internal codename Terror, not final. Think Vapor. So we got a Vapor themed subclass, very interesting. Wither is one verb with accuracy, move speed, and fire rate decrease. Decompose is like a big damage over time thing. Mind control ability. Splatoon focus on painting terrain with zones. Whoa. All of that sounds absolutely crazy. I'm definitely looking forward to that subclass coming into the game. The last one was just a bit of personal speculation from this ex-Bungie employee, which reads, expects we'll see sequel episodes eventually like Echoes 2 that follows up on Vex Osiris plotline. Doubts Bungie would commit to endless stories without interconnection. Very interesting. Now we're going to move on to the last bit, which is a 2.0 to this, a continuation of these leaks. It starts off with Season 23, and in quotations we have Sequel Dungeon, uses much of the same geometry as Old Shattered Throne, mechanic of uncorrupting spaces, using similar tech to the terrain painting of the Third Darkness subclass in development. The corrupted areas are a 1-to-1 copy of Shattered Throne. Uncorrupted is quite different. Very interesting. Bungie obviously does love to reuse some assets, so honestly would make sense to some degree. Hopefully it's spiced up enough though to not feel like it's actual recycled content. The next bit says, start of the dungeon feels most like a copy paste. The vibe changes a lot as you go through, as it gets corrupted. Ends up looking much more like the real throne world, and all encounters are changed. There's an in-game mini cutscene at the end where Marasov kills Dual Inkaru. Wow, now that would be pretty wild. This choice apparently saved a lot of dev time, but still made a pretty good final product, and I imagine that would also effectively lift the curse. The last bit for Season 23 reads, exotic strand waveframe grenade launcher that creates corrupted zones on terrain. Enemies in those zones are severed and volatile. Original plans for damage over time, but scrapped due to being too similar to Witherhoard. Zones last a long time. Whoa, now that would be really exciting. An exotic waveframe heavy grenade launcher that creates corrupted zones. I like that a lot, actually. The next leak we have is again in regards to the final shape. It starts with the Tree of Silver Wings mechanic. It has vibes similar to the Frostbearing Tree and Sacred Sakura Tree from Genshin. There's a zone that has a ton of collectibles and some kind of collectible compass you unlock via Tree of Silver Wings. And the last thing that they saw was a collectible compass was coded as a kinetic slot weapon. Very interesting. The very last bit we have here is in regard to Revenant, which is the second episode, which reads new fragments are planned for it. Only the broad strokes were final. The new fragments for each subclass are as follows. The new arc fragment gives a small health bump. The void one makes suppression a lot more common, and the strand one makes threadlings fly. Currently threadlings, as you know right now, they just crawl along the ground and then jump at their target when they get close. But now apparently threadlings are about to be flying around in the air if this leak is confirmed true. Right now, obviously all of this is just merely speculation, and like I said, take it with a grain of salt, but let me know your thoughts and ideas about this down in the comment section below. Click on the screen here to watch another video from this channel. Click the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Later. And if you're feeling thirsty out there, make sure to use code LUCKY10p to save some money on G Fuel. Also, make sure you're following me on Twitch and Kick. I go live all the time playing Destiny 2. Lastly, make sure you're following me on X, Instagram, and TikTok, where I deliver Destiny 2 news to you daily. I appreciate all the followers out there.